And joining me this time from Washington, D.C. is someone who's definitely not a Mameluke. He is the co-chair of a group called Project 21, Horace Cooper. Horace, good to see you.
Thank you for having me on the program. Our
pleasure. Horace, I want to get into some news developing regarding President Obama's plans on designating folks south of the border as refugees. However, before we do, something we never really got into on the show with you is the mission and the purpose of Project 21. You once referenced it in passing as a guest a few weeks ago, and I thought it was very interesting. Tell us about Project 21, why it exists, its purpose and its mission.
Well, Project 21 is an organization whose membership is primarily Black Americans who want to make sure that the conversation on public policy issues facing all of America includes the real broad perspectives that exist in the Black American community. All too often in the mainstream media, people like Jesse Jackson, and I call him Al Not So Sharpton, get to pretend that they speak for the breadth and depth of all of the views that Black Americans have. We at Project 21 recognize the importance of faith. We believe in the importance of family. We like the idea of personal responsibility, limited government, free markets, and we believe that mindset and those experiences ought to be part of the conversation. So we're always eager to look at the very big public policy issues and even some of the small issues and make sure that we weigh in with the perspective that reflects the real breadth of view that exists in Black America as well as in all of America.
That's right. Those issues affect all of America, as you say. They may affect different demographics differently, but those issues resonate and touch all Americans. I wish the Republican Party would get that message out there instead of trying to respond to a different type of racism, as I call it, trying to have a Black message, an Hispanic message, this message, or that message. All right, switching gears now. You talk about those public policies which affect Americans. One which President Obama appears to be preparing to do is changing the number of, upping the number of people that get designated as a refugee status. What is very fascinating about this, about him doing so, if he does, is that he would be violating his own policy, which he set not so long ago. Tell us about that, Horace Cooper.
Well, sure. A couple years ago, the president had an executive order and a finding made on how his administration was going to handle the refugee issue, and that is dealing with people who come from countries who are being persecuted, and if they return to those countries, they risk serious harm. Now, that number of individuals has been between 75,000, 85,000. He set that number at 70,000, and he designated various regions of the world to be the places where that number of 70,000 can be filled. We're now hearing that he plans to look at the Latin America immigration problem, a crisis that his administration has largely created, and attempt to redefine the definition of refugee so that it covers those individuals by claiming that if where you live there is a threat that people who will break the law may harm or injure you, you could meet the requirements for refugee status. Here's some problems with that. One is this isn't going to allow for people like the Kurds in Iraq to be able to say, well, wait, ISIS is out of control. We get to come to America. This isn't going to allow the people in Nigeria who are clearly being persecuted by Boko Haram and other terrorist groups, and you can look all across the world. But instead, it's going to attempt to redefine, we believe unlawfully, redefine the definition of persecution to say if drive-by shootings are happening, if high levels of drug activity are happening, or other kinds of criminal mayhem, and you don't like it, you get to come to America. It doesn't seem to me to be a strong argument that ultimately will bear out, and this is the kind of thing that will lead to litigation, but it's not the role of the president to even take on this kind of approach.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting, too, is we just had a guest here last week, Horace Cooper, who is his family are Christian Iraqis that immigrated to this country in the late 70s, and he is working with the president trying to get those Christian Iraqis who are being persecuted, as you know, as a genocide going on over there, trying to get them refugee status. It sounds like
absolutely.
It sounds like they would not qualify the way you describe it.
And they wouldn't, and this is the problem, and this is the reason why the refugee status and our whole immigration policy is a legislative issue. It is something that needs to come from Congress and collaborate in collaboration with the president, working out an agreement. It absolutely does not make sense, and it shouldn't be allowed to displace people who can claim, wait a second, if there's a new opportunity for refugees to come over and above the 70,000 person a year cap that you've set, why is this group getting to go into the front of the line? This is lawlessness, and it is the kind of political shenanigans that the American people are very upset about. This is part of the reason why the traditional American regard and appreciation for immigration generally has flipped. And many Americans say, wait a second, what it looks like is the political process is influencing the whole outcome. You can't even, this administration can't even say to students who've lawfully come to the United States with a student visa that they're able to check and track and make sure, are you actually attending school? When you graduated, did you go back to your country? What is going on with the present immigration, immigrants that are happening here? In America today, it's absolutely lawless for the president to announce that he's going to redefine the definition of refugee just so that he can accommodate to what he calls a political crisis, as I mentioned, one that he's largely created.
Final question on this, Horace Cooper, before we switch gears. You said it's unlawful. Where does this stand? And if he moves forward with it, who might we expect to step forward and challenge it legally?
Well, here's the good news when it comes to the standing question. There are a large number of individuals who are already in the queue who are either been given denial notices or people who represent them who will argue that this is a complete transformation of the process and therefore allow for a court to issue this ruling. I don't even understand where he believes he gets the authority to redefine refugee status. The deferred action cases stands on a very, very weak read, but at least it is about the right of the prosecutor, which is an executive function, to prioritize what cases they're going to take. This isn't about prioritizing what cases they're going to take. This is literally looking at the law and deciding, a law that's been in place for over 40 years, and deciding it has a brand new meaning. The last time I checked, the Constitution gives the interpreting what the law means role to the court, not to the president.
All right, Horace Cooper from Project 21, co-chairman, thank you for joining us and shedding light on an important subject.